Hi guys, my name's Nick, this is Walter, and welcome to NW Builds. I really like watching workshop tours on YouTube. I get stuck in those rabbit holes a lot, so I figured I'd help give my contribution to the genre, and that's what we're going to do today. A quick shop tour. So a couple quick things about my shop. It's about 20 feet long and about 12 feet wide. However, on the 2 feet running the opposite length of the workshop that I'm on, there's a closet where I've got some lumber storage on this side, and then on this side over here I've got shelving system, which we'll see in just a minute. So the effective space of my workshop is about 20 by 10. In addition, we're in the basement of a Michigan style house, so I've only got about 6-foot ceilings. It's not a huge deal for me because I'm not that tall, but there is an I-beam running through the middle, and that 6 feet makes it pretty hard to maneuver plywood around, so just a couple of limitations already. In addition to the size and the height limitation that I have, I've also got this beam that's right in the middle of my workshop. It really limits the infeed and outfeed I have for different tools. So because of that, I almost have a 12 by 10 section over here and a 12 by 10 section on the other side. Speaking of infeed and outfeed, I actually opened up the entry to this workshop from a standard 30-inch door to about a 50-inch opening, and this allows me to get a 4x8 sheet flat through the door without having to move it around too much. The only issue with this is, even when I position my table saw right there, I have no room to get around it, so it's still a tricky thing no matter how you play it. So with the opening to the shop right behind me over my left shoulder, in this corner of the workshop I've got a 14-inch Grizzly bandsaw. It's actually in a little bit of despair right now because I need to put a new blade on it, but I've been really happy with that bandsaw overall. I've been looking at getting the 6-inch riser block for it just so I get a little bit more capacity to resaw boards with. I've only tried it with pretty small stock thus far, and I've been really happy with it. I just think that resawing would give me more opportunity to make some cool things out of hardwoods. Behind that, there's actually some open shelving, and by open shelving I mean there's just some boards laid out across the studs that are down here. It was never meant to be a permanent thing. That's just how the basement was when I moved in, so I figured I'd take advantage of that. Right next to that is my Delta table saw, which I really like a lot. It's on a mobile base from the factory, which is nice because I've got it up against the wall most of the time, and then depending on what size of board I'm using, I'll pull it out and obviously use it. When I'm just using small stock and doing cross cutting, which is what I do a lot with this table saw, I'll just put it on an angle in the middle of the space, and there's plenty of room for infeed and outfeed. When I'm ripping long stock or like a full 4x8 sheet of plywood, I'll actually position it right in the doorway behind me, and then I've got more than 8 feet behind and just about 8 feet in front of it, so it ends up working pretty well. Under this side of the table saw, I've actually got an old Craftsman shop vac. It works okay for dust collection. It's currently my entire dust collection system, less a broom and a pan. It does okay. It's really loud, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to move around. A new dust collection system is definitely on my list of things that I want to do in 2021, whether that's just a new shop vac with maybe a separator or an actual wall-mounted one. Again, I'm limited on the height for some of the standing versions, so we'll see what happens. Another thing that I plan on doing in 2021, hopefully, is building a router table for one of the extension wings on my table saw. I've seen them done a lot, especially for this model, and I think that it'd be a great idea. I really like the fence that comes with this Delta table saw, so if I can just put a sacrificial one on to use for the router table, I think it would work really well. With the camera right in front of the door right now, what you're looking at is where I do most of the work in the shop. The first thing that we have when you turn to the left inside the door is my Delta miter saw on a portable workbench. The saw is just a normal miter saw. It's not a sliding one by any means, but it works really well for what I need. While I do 90% of my work down here in the shop, I'm also at the tail end of renovating my house, and occasionally I'll help some friends out with some building projects as well. So it's nice to have a tool that is set up in a great spot for when I need it down here, but also easy to move, pick up, and take with me. As for the portable workbench, I'm not in love with it by any means, especially because there's a lot of open space underneath it that I'm just not utilizing for storage. I picked it up just because it was a good deal and it serves some purpose of being able to pick it up and put it wherever you want, and it's got some pretty good clamping abilities as well. A little bit further down, we've got my main workbench. This was the first video that I did on YouTube, and if you want to go see it, I'll pin a link in the comments below. It was a lot of fun to build, but I did make a couple mistakes. One of the mistakes being that it's just a little bit too low. I found after some trial and error that I think that around 34 inches from the floor to table height is about what I want for my workbench. I was getting ready to say the next problem, but Walter needed some attention. The other problem being that I used these 45-degree angle supports for underneath. Sorry that the lighting isn't too great under here. In workbenches that I've made before, I've made a regular structured system so that I can put shelves with legs coming straight up. I thought that this would be better because it would clear up some ground space, but as you can see, that's just collected junk. The dividers still, or the supports still kind of divide what you can put under there, so you can't just put whatever you want. And I'm lacking shelves, which is really the biggest reason. A lot of this stuff, it's not easy to stack things on top of, like milk crates and toolboxes and air compressors. But if there was a shelving system, I would be able to get another layer of storage there. So with that being said, I've got some plans to move and shorten this workbench this way and then raise the height as well. In addition, I actually glued up and laminated a worktop a while ago, well before I was trying to make a YouTube channel. And I've got it sitting in the other room right now, and I think that that's going to be a project coming up pretty soon too. It's going to be something like a traditional woodworking bench, however, it's going to have some modern features as well, and I'll try my best to make plans on that too. Moving a little bit further down this wall, you've got the end of my workbench, a garbage can, and then a mobile workbench, also known as an extra cabinet from the kitchen with an MDF top on top of it, and a couple of casters on the bottom. This works out really well. One of the workflow things that I figured out through some trial and error is that I really like having more of a galley style workspace. So what I do is I'll be working on this workbench with the cabinet kind of where the camera is, and I'll keep my tools on that. So while I'm using a few different tools and working on pieces on the workbench itself, my tools are out of the way and I don't have to move things every time I want to reposition the piece. Above that are a couple of cabinets. Two just storage cabinets that I built a while ago. I'm not super happy with them. They do their job okay, but there's no uniform nature to them, and they're not necessarily the prettiest thing in the world, so I'd like to change that pretty soon. Next to it is my drill charging station, which I did do a video on that, and there's plans available for that if you'd like to see more. It's a pretty basic design, just like most of the people on YouTube build, but it works out well for me. As we move a little bit further down the shop still, we've got this mobile tool cart that I made a little while ago and really just never finished. I'm not super happy with the design. It was something that I kind of threw together a little bit quicker than I should have. It does have a lot of storage, but it doesn't really work for the tools that are on it. Right now, I've got a 1x30 belt sander from Harbor Freight that I use to sharpen tools, and I'm pretty happy with that. A Wen drill press, which I don't think that I would buy that again. It's one of the ones where you need to adjust the pulleys manually, and what I find happens is that it's just not worth the effort of doing it, so it's always on the middle one, and it's not really great for anything specifically, but it does work. And then next to that is the belt sander that I converted into kind of a DIY edge sander. I've got a video on that too, and I've been really happy with how that works. One of those Wen oscillating spindle sanders is something that's been on my list. But realistically, this does everything that I need to, and I'm having a really hard time justifying buying a new tool, as crazy as that sounds. On the back side of that is actually a really old Sears lathe that I got from a friend of mine. I got about half the pieces and have been piecing the rest together since. It's not fully functional yet, and part of that is because of the workbench. This lathe works on an external pulley system so that the motor is housed separately outside the machine. And I recently saw a new way that I might be able to tension it a little bit better. instead of having the piece set back, I think that I'm actually going to build a workbench where it's set underneath, and so gravity is more or less providing tension on that pulley. And when you want to change the belt size, you would move the motor to a different position on that second shelf. So I'm hoping that that's a video that's going to be coming soon. Underneath it is just storage for a bunch of stuff, honestly. It would be better in a shelf system up on a wall to get some of those boxes out. A lot of those boxes are ones where tools are somewhere else in my shop organized well, and that's just the case for it. So they really don't need to be in such a handy spot. The nice thing is it is on wheels, like most things in a small shop, and that works out well. But the amount of tools and the use that cart gives me compared to the space that it takes up just isn't really proportional right now. So that's going to be something we work on pretty soon. And as you could have seen from the last shot, as we move our way around, we're getting into that closet area where I've got some lumber storage. This isn't anything super fancy. A lot of oak and maple that I've got from just one of the big box stores, and it's really convenient for a small shop like this because it's already pretty flat and it's got 4 square sides. So at that point you're more or less just cutting to the dimensions you want, doing any joinery you want, and then putting it together. Next to that is actually some maple that I helped mill up, which was really cool. I've only been able to do that once, and it was from a property that I've been to a million times, so it has a little bit special meaning to it too. I'm hoping to build some small end tables for my own house out of them, but that'll be my first project out of like real rough lumber that's supposed to, you know, look nice and presentable enough. So I'm really excited to do that. I might do a test one before I film anything, just so I can work out some of the kinks beforehand. And as we keep this tour moving right around to the last part of this 360, we get to my Craftsman toolbox, which was probably the first real thing that I had in any workshop, thanks to my dad. At one point it held all of my tools. As those tools have grown, it's pretty much just a collection of a few. In some of the thinking that I have moving forward for my shop layout, I think that the bottom is going to become another mobile workbench where I'll take the top off, put some type of surface on it, and then be able to wheel it around and use it similar to how I use that cabinet. I think that this is going to stay on a workbench more or less for house stuff, so wrenches, sockets, some screwdrivers, that kind of thing. And then this middle portion will likely go on that lathe cabinet and be for some more woodworking tools, chisels, planes, things like that. To the right of it, and you don't need to see all of it, but I've got things like sawhorses, a roller outfeed stand, a garbage bin for scraps, and then some more tools that I generally use when I'm working on my own house or helping out friends. And they're just easier to kind of keep mobile, ready to go, get thrown in the truck, and then they're sitting out in the open, so it's easy to grab a screwdriver or some pliers for them if I need to. So that's the end of my workshop tour for 2021, guys. I wanted to thank you for sticking through this long. If you want to stay up to date with some of the projects that I've got going and things that I've got planned, a few how-tos of the little that I know how to do, I'd welcome you to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date. I'm working on launching a website too, which I know is a little bit premature for the, I think, 65 subscribers that I have. However, there's a lot of projects that I do, and I don't necessarily want to make a full video on it, but some pictures and some instruction on what I did I think would be pretty cool. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'm kind of playing around with the idea of selling some plans. For that drill charger station that you saw, I have it listed for $2 on Etsy. It's not like I'm trying to, you know, make it rich with these plans, but if it's something that you're interested in, I already did the math to make it fit for some stuff, and if it saves you some time, you know, that's what it's really all about. Thanks for watching this long. Hope to see you guys again. If you have any questions, let me know. Looking forward to making videos in 2021. Thanks, guys. Take care.